This is a natural sea sponge getting trimmed. And it was harvested here in Tarpon Springs, Florida, the sponge capital of the world.
No sponges, no Tarpon Springs.
By some estimates, about 70% of the natural sea sponges collected globally come from this stretch of Florida's coastline. Generations of residents, many Greek, have built their lives around this foamy sea creature.
I don't know how to do anything else.
Sponge divers here have harvested these animals, yes, they're animals, since the 1900s. But the industry has been struggling recently. Increasingly frequent hurricanes have prevented fishermen from heading out to sea. Some of those storms even killed the sponges. And high fuel costs over the last year have turned some away from working in the industry at all. But sponge diving has faced challenges in the past and has bounced back before. Sponge sales still bring in a couple $1 million a year. But Tarpon Springs has found another way to leverage its storied history.
It supports probably close to $20 million worth of tourism.
We head to Florida's Gulf Coast to find out how sea sponges became such a big business and why divers are fighting to keep their trade alive. Anastasios Charistinos arrived here from Greece in the early 1970s. The 70-year-old now goes by Captain Tasso.
His name is Tasso Charistinos.
Ocean is, I feel like my house, home for me. And we ended up in Tarpon Springs. Greek town, Greek music, Greek restaurants, so I fit into a place.
Sponge diving dates back to ancient Greece. In fact, both Homer and Aristotle wrote about the creatures. Back then, people used them for bathing, cleaning, painting, and decorating, the same as today. When settlers found natural sponge beds in Florida in the 1800s, Greeks began making their way to America, bringing their trade with them. In the olden days, they'd wear suits like this. But nowadays, divers wear wetsuits in the summer and insulating dry suits in the winter. And they strap on scuba masks and shoes.
I've worn anywhere from football cleats to try to basically grip the bottom to run a little faster, to construction boots, to deck boots, to scuba boots.
I use no tools. The only thing I got a knife and cut it off. That's it. Knife.
They plunge as low as 60 feet deep to find the sponges.
Hardly ever it will go over 45, 50, 60 feet maybe.
They walk along the bottom for as long as it takes to fill up one bag.
I just keep looking. I just make a lot of dives. I go down and I look.
In the old days, they used a hook to tear sponges from the bottom. But now, by law, a diver has to cut the sponge with a knife to promote regeneration. One study shows cut sponges have a much better chance of surviving, roughly 30% higher than hooked ones. It's kind of like shearing a sheep or cutting a branch off a tree. Sponges actually show the highest regenerative ability of any animal. Still, Captain Tasso doesn't harvest the smaller ones. He leaves them behind so they can keep growing.
They have to be 5 inches and up.
They haul their full net up to the boat and make their way back to shore.
Ε? Ναι, αλλά η σακούλα μέσα είχε 2 οκτάρια, είχε και ένα για αυτές.
On the docks, Tasso and his team get to work, separating and cleaning the sponges.
The price of the sponges depends on the size of the sponges and the quality.
Wool sponges are the most valuable, going for about $15 each. They're the softest and they hold a lot of water. Yellows are more coarse. They're also the cheapest. As the fishermen sort the sponges, they give them the first of many cleanings. Then they trim them to get rid of any discolorations and to shape them.
That's the reason I'm wearing the gloves, because sponges like a fine sandpaper. They wear you out, you know, the fingerprints disappear. See? Just like glass. I almost dropped my coffee cup this morning, you know?
Overnight, Captain Tasso leaves his clean sponges out to dry. Some people stop by to ask questions or buy straight from the harvesters on the docks, but Tasso says the best option is finding a wholesale buyer. The sponges find themselves, or rather a piece of themselves, at a processing plant, like this one, about 1.5 miles from the docks. Sponges get soaked in the wetting area and pushed down into a bath with a wooden paddle. Then they're drained in this net and transferred to a water extractor, where they're spun to remove excess water, leaving the sponges damp and ready for the next stage, cutting. The worker protects his fingers from this sharp wire with gloves.
These are sponges that are netted up for processing. We'll put them in the bath tonight and they'll sit there overnight and then be processed from there.
Harry Barber manages the plant at Armley Sponge Company. The Armley family founded the company in the Bahamas in 1908 and expanded into Florida about 50 years ago. They opened their Tarpon Springs processing plant in 2018. Into the washing machine they go. Next, time to dry and get sorted by size. They box the sponges and prepare them for shipment.
Bath sponges have taken off tremendously because people want to use something on their children that's sustainable and clean and natural.
Despite the sponge's near magical ability to regenerate, it was almost wiped out here in the late 1930s by a mysterious disease. And then again in the 40s and 50s, out-of-control algae called red tides killed many local sponge beds. The population survived against all odds and thrived during the industry's heyday in the 1980s, when around 30 sponge boats and 50 divers docked here every day.
It was a blight of sponges in the Mediterranean, and we were able to harvest here locally at higher prices and ship stuff over to the Mediterranean.
But when the Mediterranean fisheries recovered, the demand and the price went down again in Tarpon Springs. Many fishermen went out of business, but some, like Captain Tasso, stuck it out.
And I don't know how to do anything else.
2022 hasn't proven much easier. With record inflation and fuel prices, maintaining and gassing up a boat is expensive. And the industry is facing another problem. Hurricanes are happening more and more because of the climate crisis, so bad years are becoming the norm. Divers can't go out during storms, but there's something else. Even though sponges are technically animals, they survive by attaching themselves to the ocean floor. During a hurricane, many get smothered by sand or hit by tumbling rocks and die. Lately, only a handful of sponge boats and about a dozen divers go out any given day.
You just have to look harder because it's not everywhere general like used to be. A red tide kill them, but some survivors here and there.
Captain Tasso works long days.
I work all my life. I grew up in a family, 12 kids. My father take me up 4 o'clock in the morning, working all day long. I can work 24 hours non-stop.
Handling his sponges the whole time.
From the time you pick the sponge on the bottom, that's the first time you touch it. By the time you sell it, you have touched the same sponge at least 20 more times.
Armley mostly buys from independent contractors like Tasso.
We purchase from them based on what they bring in and the conditions and sizes of what they have.
So the income isn't guaranteed. Sponger Muhip Goktepe goes on these long fishing trips year-round. He makes about $46,000 a year.
If you bring sponges, it's gonna be good year. You don't bring them, no good year. Sometimes hurricane, tropical storm, you don't work.
Some years you work more and you make more. Some years less and you make less. Depends how much time you go out there, that's all.
In addition to the financial uncertainty, diving can be dangerous if your hose gets cut or you dive too deep. That's why Muhip and Tasso aren't trying to pass down a family business.
Well, cut my air hose a couple of times and I run out of air and I have to swim up. That's a dangerous stuff.
I don't want my kids or my grandkids to do this job. They can do better, you know what I mean?
There's not much money into it. Nobody wants to go get beat up out there for 20 days. People prefer to be in the land. I ain't gonna push my grandkids to this job. I don't want them to do that. They're doing good in the school.
It is sad to see so few fishing, but I certainly understand it. The markets right now won't bear really high prices to offset the cost of fuel. Maintenance on boats is expensive. We're looking at a country and a world that's trying to look at natural products.
So until the industry can rejuvenate itself, Tarpon Springs will have to rely on its tourism. Visitors pour tens of millions of dollars into the community every year, eating authentic Greek food and taking boat tours. They also shop for sponge souvenirs to take home. But many locals wonder if tourism will be the long-term solution, and if it's not, what's next for the upcoming generation of spongers?